The colony of New Sparta glittered against the black expanse of space. A relatively new settlement on the fringes of human space, its 500,000 inhabitants had established a thriving mining operation, extracting valuable ore from the planet's mineral-rich crust. Life was good for the pioneering colonists. Until the Resuk arrived. The Resuk Empire spanned dozens of star systems, its military might unmatched. The reptilian species viewed themselves as the galaxy's supreme race, destined to subjugate all others. To them, the budding human colonies were upstart vermin to be crushed. A massive Resuk warfleet emerged from hyperspace near New Sparta, immediately jamming all communications. Swarms of fighters launched from the fleet's carriers, descending on the planet like locusts. On the surface, alarms blared as the colonists realized what was happening. Civil defense militias scrambled to arm themselves with what weapons they had, mostly small arms intended for defense against wildlife. The colony had little in the way of heavy defenses. Leading the militia was Captain Marcus Ward, a grizzled veteran of the Terran Defense Force who had retired to New Sparta. As the Resuk fighters began bombardment runs, incinerating buildings and sending civilians fleeing in panic, Marcus grimly started organizing resistance. "This is what we trained for, boys," he barked at the assembled militiamen. "We're not going to let these lizards take our world without one hell of a fight. Dig in and hold your positions." The outmatched human defenders put up a valiant struggle, fighting the Resuk in brutal street-to-street urban combat. Armed with assault rifles, rocket launchers, and sheer tenacity, they made the invaders pay for every block in blood. But they were simply overwhelmed by superior Resuk numbers and firepower. After 2 days of fierce fighting, the colony's defenses were shattered. Smoking ruins stretched as far as the eye could see. A third of the militia lay dead. The rest were in full retreat. From his command ship in orbit, General Takros, the Resuk commander, smiled a lipless reptilian grin as he surveyed the bombardment. These pathetic humans dared resist the Resuk Empire? They would be taught their place, as slaves serving their new masters. Takros ordered his troops to land and start rounding up the surviving humans. He expected them to meekly surrender now that organized resistance had collapsed. He was wrong. As Resuk forces advanced into the blasted ruins of the colony, they were met with ambushes, sniper fire, and booby traps. Humans popped up like vengeful ghosts to attack Resuk patrols before slipping away into the rubble. Leading this guerrilla resistance was none other than Captain Marcus Ward. Gathering the most hardcore survivors of the militia, Marcus had faded into New Sparta's labyrinthine mining tunnels to wage an insurgency. "We can't beat them head-on," Marcus told his resistance fighters. "So we bleed them. We hit them hard and fast, then disappear before they know what happened. We make them choke on this occupation." And bleed the Resuk they did. Supply depots erupted in flames from well-placed satchel charges. Roving patrol squads were shredded by machine gun ambushes. Officers were sniped from afar. The human resistors became the stuff of nightmares for Resuk troopers. Enraged, General Takros had his forces crack down brutally on the colony, executing civilians and burning settlements. But the atrocities only stiffened human resolve. The ranks of the resistance swelled as outraged colonists took up arms. Marcus led increasingly bold raids, freeing slave labor camps, capturing heavy weapons, and sabotaging Resuk mining operations. In one daring operation, resistance commandos stole a Resuk frigate from a depot, blasting their way into space. Months ground by in a grueling insurgency, the Resuk nominally controlled New Sparta's surface but moved in constant fear of human partisan attacks. The invaders remained blind to the full extent of the Resistance's tunnel networks and hidden bases. But the humans were being ground down too. Hundreds of resistance fighters had fallen in action. Takros' search and destroy sweeps were taking an increasingly bloody toll. Much of the civilian populace languished in Resuk prison camps. The resistance needed a game changer. And Marcus Ward had a plan to get one. "The Resuk think their little occupation here broke us," Marcus said to his assembled strike teams. "That we're just a minor nuisance now, but we're going to show them they knocked a hole in a dam and a flood's coming through." Marcus' plan hinged on activating New Sparta's colony transponder, a powerful communications device that could broadcast on Terran frequencies. The Resuk had disabled it in their initial assault, and it remained heavily guarded at the colony's primary spaceport. Reaching it would require a virtual suicide mission, a full frontal assault on a heavily fortified Resuk position. But if activated, the transponder could carry a message to the Terran fleet. Leading over 100 resistance fighters armed to the teeth, Marcus himself spearheaded the attack. As a diversion, resistance cells all across New Sparta struck Resuk bases and patrols, stretching the invaders thin. The Resuk were caught flat-footed by the two-pronged offensive. Marcus' strike team blasted through the perimeter of the spaceport, engaging in a vicious firefight with Resuk defenders. While half the team laid down covering fire, drawing the brunt of the Resuk counterattack, Marcus led the other half in a mad dash for the transponder. Dozens of humans fell to withering blaster fire during the charge. Marcus caught a bolt to the shoulder but pushed through the pain, hurling a jetpack charge that demolished the blast doors guarding the transponder complex. As Resuk reinforcements closed in, Marcus input the Terran fleet codes and recorded his message. "This is Captain Marcus Ward of the New Sparta Colony Defense Militia," he said into the mic, his voice ragged. "The Resuk Empire has invaded New Sparta without provocation and seized control. We are mounting resistance but urgently need reinforcement. This is an act of war by the Resuk upon the Terran Federation." Marcus beamed the message at the Terran fleet's nearest sector headquarters, praying it would reach them. Then he and the few survivors fell back, fighting a desperate rearguard action to cover their escape. The losses had been tremendous, but the mission succeeded. When the message reached Terran space, it set off shockwaves. An emergency session of the Terran Federation Council was convened. The Resuk invasion of New Sparta was unanimously denounced as an act of aggression. The Federation had long known of the Resuk's militaristic expansionism, but had, until now, managed to avoid outright conflict. That time was over. The Terran fleet immediately dispatched a relief force to New Sparta, centered on the carrier TFS Indomitable and its elite 131st Marine Expeditionary Unit. The fleet made the jump to New Sparta and caught the Resuk by surprise. As the Indomitable's fighters engaged the Resuk fleet in orbit, the Marines made planetfall in their Hercules-class dropships. They linked up with Marcus Ward and the Resistance, then launched a devastating counteroffensive. Resuk forces reeled under the two-pronged assault of elite Terran troops and Resistance guerrillas intimately familiar with the terrain. Liberation came swiftly to New Sparta. Takros was captured trying to flee, and the last Resuk holdouts were crushed or surrendered. Across the Terran Federation, news of the victory was greeted with jubilation, and Marcus Ward and the New Sparta Resistance were hailed as heroes. But the celebration was short-lived. The Resuk Empire condemned the Terran intervention in what it called an internal affair, and declared war on the Terran Federation. Thus began the Terran-Resuk War, a conflict that would embroil much of the known galaxy. Fleets clashed in titanic deep space battles while armies grappled on a dozen worlds. The Resuk brought their full might to bear, determined to crush the upstart humans. But the Terrans would prove far more resilient than the Resuk anticipated. Word of the New Sparta resistance spread, inspiring humans everywhere to rise up against Resuk domination. Resuk conquests that had long been considered secure erupted into guerrilla warfare, with human partisans fighting the empire from within. The Terran fleet also proved highly effective, its cutting-edge warships and innovative tactics often prevailing against the larger but more traditional Resuk armada. Terran Marines in their powered armor became the stuff of legend, relentlessly taking the fight to the foe. Marcus Ward, now a colonel, fought across a dozen worlds in some of the heaviest engagements of the war, leading his troops from the front. From the fungal jungles of Verdania to the frozen wastes of Callus Prime to the floating cities of Eros, he battled the Resuk and earned a reputation as one of the Terran Federation's greatest heroes. After 5 bloody years, the Resuk Empire could no longer sustain the war. Beaten back to its core systems, faced with mass unrest among its subjugated races and ever bolder Terran offensives, the Resuk sued for peace. In the Treaty of Vercingetorix, the Resuk renounced all claim to their conquests, freeing dozens of worlds including New Sparta. The Resuk hegemony was shattered, their subject races winning independence. It was a humiliating defeat for an empire that had once considered itself invincible. The Terran Federation had won a great victory and proven humanity's strength on the galactic stage, but unbeknownst to most, they may have only prevailed due to an unlikely ally. There is a story, shared only in hushed whispers in certain quarters of Terran intelligence, that the New Sparta resistance received aid from an enigmatic alien known only as the Envoy. The Envoy, so the tale goes, provided Captain Marcus Ward and his partisans with intelligence on Resuk movements and technical data that proved pivotal to the resistance. The mysterious alien's motives were unclear, but some speculate he represented an ancient spacefaring race, long in hiding, intervening from the shadows to counter Resuk aggression and uplift younger races. But only a select few know of the envoy's supposed role, and with no evidence, the story remains a mere rumor. Regardless, there is no doubt that the courage and tenacity of Marcus Ward and the new Sparta resistance proved instrumental in humanity's victory. Their example that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit cannot be conquered continues to inspire to this day. The Terran Federation now stands as a galactic superpower and the undisputed leader of the free races. Dozens of species once enslaved by the Resuk have established democratic societies and joined the Terran Alliance. No longer will tyrants like the Resuk be allowed to dominate the stars. A new era of liberty has dawned. And it all began with a group of ordinary human colonists on an unassuming mining world called New Sparta, who stared down an alien empire and refused to yield. There can be no greater testament to humanity's indomitable will.